The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
Welcome to a Monday evening recording of the Minnesota Soccer Podcast. That's right, we'll be coming to your feeds on Tuesday this week, spicing up the early work week.
I go to Chicago to cover a series for ZoneCoverage.com. And this is what happens. We have a 2-hour-long Wolves Wired, and then Nick Hallett disappears into thin air.
I yesterday was just shenanigans. The whole weekend was shenanigans for me, but I don't need to go into that on air.
Do you want to tell the people what happened?
I don't need to spread that. Go to my Twitter feed. I tweeted about it. We don't need to spend time on that. Anyway, I'm David Naylor at Prof. Cedar here with, as usual, Tom Schreier and Nick Hallett. We were deprived because of Nick Hallett's scheduling of guest producer Tim Fakeless.
That is too bad. I'm sorry, Tim.
Which is a gosh darn shame. Shout out to Tim, who was going to be here. He watched the game. Unlike Tom.
Yeah, sorry. I was covering the Twins.
Yeah, Tom didn't watch the game. Tom watching stupid baseball team.
Stupid baseball team beating the St. Louis Cardinals 4-0.
Yeah, that's why they're stupid today. That's specifically why they were introduced with that particular adjective. Anyway, let's talk about some soccer because there was a soccer game.
A fascinating soccer game.
A very, very interesting soccer game, which Minnesota United won by a scoreline of 1-0 over the Vancouver Whitecaps. For their second straight win at home. And it was a strange, fascinating, wonderful game. The short story is that Minnesota United went down to 10 men at the 50-minute mark of the game after Mason Toye did a really stupid kid thing and elbowed a guy in the gut. And the ref saw it and sent him off with a straight red, and that was that.
It was a good call by the ref, and what's so impressive is that he saw that in live action.
Because that's
clearly.
No one in the stadium, Nick and I were up in the press box as usual, but no one in the stadium had any idea what had happened or why Toye had been sent off because they didn't replay the incident on the video board, which that happens a lot with incidents like this.
Yeah, I had so many people, because like we've discussed on the pod, I work in the soccer sphere full time, and I had so many people over the weekend ask me, like, what happened on that play? Because so many people were like at the game and it didn't show.
And credit to Fox Sports North, who got the perfect replay angle on it. So once we saw that,
and in the press box, we saw it.
Yeah, we saw it in the press box. Eventually, like, a couple people got gifs of it captured and got them out there. Yeah, it was pretty clear. He just stuck his elbow into the guy's gut.
What did you see it coming?
No, not at all.
No.
Okay.
So it was like Toye said after the game that it was because he felt like he'd been getting tons of physical contact from them, and so what he tried to do is subtly, because a lot of times, right, to create space in a lot of different sports, you might swim move around someone, use your arms a little bit, and so he it was a ball was coming at him, so it was a time maybe that you naturally would do that, and he tried to disguise it by swim moving, but actually elbowing really hard in the gut.
So it wasn't in the back of the play or something.
No, it was pretty obvious, was.
It was pretty
dumb.
obvious. In Nick and I's defense, it was literally as far on the field as it can possibly be from us. They were on offense going toward the whichever end of the stadium it is that's opposite the press box.
It was so fast, so all of a sudden Dave and I are just chilling, we're chilling.
Why is the game stopped?
Why is the game stopped, and why is Mason Toye walking off the field? And then luckily we had the replay. So
yeah, it was a really strange thing because there was no the basketball fight, right, where the guys are getting up in each other's faces and yelling at each other and nothing actually happens. There was none of that. Both teams are frustrated with the refereeing, I thought, on a large part. I know Minnesota United I was told, some issues with this particular referee whose name I've forgotten.
I don't think it's important.
Dating to games past, but there was.
Was the game a slog?
No, I thought it was a good game.
It was a very open game.
It was a good game.
If we talk about the first half, so we skipped ahead to the Toye incident, which was the first of the two most important incidents of the game. The first half was really, really open from both teams. I read a stat in doing some reading after the game this weekend that Vancouver, across all of the teams in the MLS going into this weekend, had the lowest average possession down in like 41%. So all they want to do is play on the counter. And Minnesota have shown that with their offense set up the way it was, and especially as we saw in the game with the addition of Alexi Gomez to the starting lineup, they also really want to play on the counter. So it's one of those things where neither team really wants to have the ball, which means it's always moving back and forth and switching possession between the two sides. Vancouver had about 10 minutes where they were on top at the start of the game. Minnesota were really on top for the second 10 minutes of the game, and it just kind of like swayed back and forth. There were chances for both teams. Toy actually could have opened the scoring. He had an near opening like 2 yards outside of the front of the goal, but there were 5 other people around him, and they couldn't just shove it in. And Vancouver, I believe, had a shot hit the post in the first half, and I know they did in the second half. So there were openings, there were chances for both teams, and that's part of why it was an interesting game to watch, is because it's much less of a one team has the ball and is probing. It's the teams are both going at each other in a much more aggressive way, in my opinion. Nick, I don't know how you felt about it, but
I feel like, yeah, to your point, it was open and kind of back and forth, and that's what a lot of times makes a good game, is when it's both sides are kind of getting their chances a little bit. They both struggled to create clear-cut chances a ton in the first half, but no, for me though, I'm so much right. We're watching it from a Minnesota United perspective, as we're Minnesota United, writers, and that was, to me, it was just fascinating because it's like Vancouver comes in like second in the West or what have you, and Minnesota United, terrible first season, or struggled the first season in MLS, and like kind of struggling, just had one of its longest losing streaks coming into 2 weeks ago, and then now they're down. Like the story that I wrote about in the lead up to the game is all these sudden injury issues they're having when they have like 12 guys on the injury report all of a sudden, and it's like so I'm watching it from that perspective of like, do you guys have every excuse to lose this game? And like, if you lost 3-0, you couldn't really be that upset with them. Like, I don't see how you could. They're still dealing with a lot of issues, and now they're like super shorthanded. And they were like, the first half was like, oh, they're here to play. Like, awesome. Like, what? Credit to them, and credit to Adrian. And that's again what I wrote about at the end of the game, was how much of this last 2 games should be credited to Adrian for some of the things he's done, and we'll get to that. But yeah, for me, it was the first half was like, wow, like these guys, like this is an even game, and that is a huge bonus from a Minnesota United perspective, and that went on to be the case throughout.
And to add on to that, they didn't allow a goal in the first half for the first time in a long time.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, the expectations of this team are at that type of level where it's like, we got through the United got through the first half without letting a goal in. Yeah. That's positive. That's huge. That's nice.
So then you get to the red card decision, and you're like, okay, well, now they're going to go for the 0-0, try and shut stuff down as much as they can, because that's what you do when you're playing down a man. I think Nick and I both agreed on that. And we were
yes.
Among other members of the press box, it was like, it is not in Adrian Heath's mindset to play for a 0-0, but to some extent, it's hard to have a choice in that when playing 10 against 11. And instead, United played probably their best 10 minutes of the game, which culminated in the 1 goal of the game by Miguel Ibarra.
It was such an odd series of events. It was.
It's so funny to hear that, like, that Heath can't go 0-0. I think of Jacques Lemaire with the expansion Wild. Like, that was his MO. And
right.
It is funny, like, that. I was just thinking of this, that, like, he's confident enough in his skill, or whatever, at least the team as organization is, that they have this.
Yeah, he's like Mike D'Antoni of Houston, like offense, or whatever, what have you. But so, yeah, no, it's interesting, because even when you could argue a lot of times United's roster's not that good, but he still does get good offensive results at like plenty of times. It's pretty fascinating.
And so that was the interesting point with the goal specifically is, I hadn't felt like Toy had really gotten into the game, and obviously he's got this chance to show out because Ramirez is hurt, Donlotti's hurt. He's the guy. There is no striker on the bench. There's nobody else on the team to do that. And so when he gets himself sent off, the fact that the midfield 3 of Gomez, Quintero, and Ibarra combined to score the goal without need of a striker was interesting to me, because it was almost like they played a little bit better without having a striker in the way.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, because you would have thought, Maybe what I think actually may happen is that Adrian just didn't adjust anything. He just was like, all right, you guys can kind of play like this for a little while. We'll see how it goes. I think so much of it is a psychological thing for Vancouver. It's like you take your foot off the pedal just a little bit because you're like, they got one less guy now for the rest of the game. And instead of United kind of like going into a shell and just like totally, tucking in, them playing just regular threw Vancouver off because they wouldn't expect that. And then, credit, and we talked about this, I talked about this, in my player ratings after the game for ZoneCoverage.com. Credit to Alexi Gomez and Darwin Quintero and the rest of the guys for not really shifting their mentality and just being very bullish about the way they handled the rest of the situation. And that's exactly how the goal came about. Perfect example. Alexi Gomez gets it on the left wing, and if he looks up, all he can see are 5 other Vancouver Whitecaps in his way. That's all he's got. Like, in every sport, if that's the case, you kind of pull up, hold possession, use your teammates. And what does he do? He goes right at that first defender, dribbles to the side of him, and again, you're still like, dude, what are you going to do? Like, there's nowhere to shoot. There's no one to cross to. What are you doing? And he frickin' sends an amazing cross all the way across all these defenders perfectly to Miguel Ibarra, who buries it.
Well,
he got an amazing save in the initial, but he hits the rebound in, and it was still all credit to Alexi.
Yeah, because
Alexi's ball.
The first shot was an incredible save.
It was.
Miguel hit that really well, and for the keeper to get a hand on the first ball was ridiculous.
Absolutely.
But then Miguel chased it, followed it up, and buried it, which was awesome to see. Miguel talked about after the game that he'd been told, go to the back post, go to the back post, go to the back post, go to the back post. And he's like, well, I listened, and it worked. I think the synopsis of the quote is, well, I had that really good one a couple of weeks ago against Portland that got chalked off, so all my entire head's just stay on side, stay on side, stay on side.
Right.
And he did.
I like that quote. I saw that.
And he did, and he buried it. So... and it was cool to see because it was really like Quintero spread it out to Gomez. Gomez hits the cross. Ibarra finishes it. It's your attacking midfield, which are playing together really for the first time in an MLS game because you have Gomez playing in his second game, and they just do everything perfectly to create a goal out of very little down a man, which that's special.
Yeah, and I actually rewatched the goal today, and what was actually even a piece of it I didn't register at the time is they were actually stuck in Jerome Thiessen's right corner, like defensively, to start that play, and they built out through Schuler, through Ibarra, into Darwin, and that's how they got it out to Alexi. So it's actually just like a stunning team move overall, and I think that speaks to having only 10 men and having them end that situation with a goal highlights some of the really successful and well-worked things that they have operating at all times that can go unseen at times. But yeah, it was a brilliant team move, and again, stunning individual efforts from Alexi and Miguel.
Yeah, and there's the goal, and now you're up 1-0 with 10, and you have to defend. So Vancouver have their chances. Vancouver, probably less than 5 minutes after the goal, hit the crossbar on a heck of a shot. I wrote in my recap, all 3 of the subs that they made had very good opportunities to score. Kai Kamara,
good point.
Kai Kamara whiffed on a wide open header, just hit it completely wide.
But it was close.
It was close, but he should not have missed that.
For sure, he missed the frame, but it was close, and it was a good chance.
And then I forget their first sub that brought on, but he was the one that hit the crossbar.
Yep.
And then there was the Breck Shea shot.
Yes.
Which Breck Shea, former U.S. men's national team player, high-quality guy to bring in off the bench, gets it on the right wing, about 20 yards outside the goal, hits a beautiful, curling, hard shot, going right in the top corner. Heath said he was right behind the shot, and it was probably 2 or 3 yards outside of the goal, and you just know it's curving in top corner. Bobby Shuttleworth did Bobby Shuttleworth things, knocked it out.
Yeah, where have we seen that before? Last week, this. And I said it at the time when it happened last week because that one was so it was such a great juxtaposition because Shuttleworth makes this stunning save, and not like a minute, 30 seconds later, United goes on to score the winner. Obviously highlighting the super importance of that stunning save by Shuttleworth. And then when we talked about it on the pod, that's something he did last year with a decent amount of regularity. And boom, this week, they've taken the lead. They're holding on to it. fantastic chance for Brek Shea, and then Shuttleworth again pulls out an MLS All-Star caliber save. Like
Vancouver had 19 shots, 7 on goal, all 7 saves. The save on the Brek Shea shot was the most ridiculous, but he was sure-handed.
Is this the equivalent?
Awesome.
Like, how similar is it to hockey, scoring shorthanded and then having to defend a power play? Like 11 on 10. Is that what is?
It's actually pretty wildly different because there's so many bodies. Because it's literally it's like double the bodies because it's 6v6 if you count goalies in hockey.
Yeah,
and it's 11v11 in soccer. So it's just like there is obviously a lot more space on there, but it gets so many bodies in there. It's not that. It's an advantage, but it's not nearly like if you had a whole third period with 4 guys in a hockey game. It's not
so
like that.
Is the space created in the back end then? Typically, or like where do player or where does a team?
Yes, everyone tucks in to like get as many bodies in front of the goal, and so the space to work the balls from behind.
It actually leads on to where I was going to go next, which was how Adrian Heath used his substitutions.
Yeah.
So United got
we should do that next, but just lastly, and it maybe goes. It should be said again, even though maybe it's obvious to a lot of people at this point. But I said it last week after Shuttleworth made that save and they won the game as a result. He is the unquestioned starter at this point.
Yeah.
By far. And again, the only reason maybe he didn't even start at all early in the season was because he was dealing with that vertigo.
Yep. And that makes a lot of sense now. And the more we see him, he's in really, really good form right now.
Yeah.
The substitutions that Heath made came at an interesting time because it was a toasty day on Saturday at TCF Bank Stadium. Vancouver were having one of their most threatening spells of the entire game. And at the 75th minute, there was a hydration break called by the referees, which was really well timed for Minnesota.
Well, the way you phrase that makes it sound like it was like maybe impromptu by the referees. I don't think that was the case.
I think it's like an MLS supposed to do it at the 75th. So it was, I believe, like
whatever they did was based on like the MLS rules. It wasn't like the ref was like, based on like how much I'm sweating, we're going to stop. Well, it wasn't like that.
But it's I believe you're right that it's an MLS rule that if it's going to happen, it happens at the 75th minute.
And it didn't happen. I thought it did happen in 75th.
It did. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah,
I'm agreeing with you.
Oh yeah.
But the referees have some sort of. They can make a judgment when to actually.
They do,
stop
and
right?
regardless of referee intent. Which I'm not questioning referee intent. It was a really good time for Minnesota because they were up against it, and Heath had not.
Anytime you're down to 10 men and holding onto a lead, it's a good time for a break.
Yeah, so
that's what that is.
And Heath had not made his subs yet. He made his subs at the water break, bringing in Colin Martin and Wyatt Omsberg to make his second appearance and first real appearance because that Red Bulls game was not a real thing.
Well, it was. That's why it's on the standings. But yes, I know what you mean.
Look at that starting lineup and tell me it was a real game. But Omsberg came in and they shifted to essentially a 5-3-1 formation, which is you talk about Adrian Heath not wanting to go defensive. That is Adrian Heath going defensive because it's essentially 8 in the back and Darwin running around up front doing whatever he needs to do.
That was stunning to me. And that's, again, though, like, as much as I don't know if it's a great strategy, you have to give him credit because he's made 2 drastic formation changes the last 2 games. And both these games were won in the second half, and you have to give him massive credit. Shifting to the 4-3-3 last week, and that's when United played its best, and then having this lead, holding it on, and making a pretty bold call to have no wingers on the field and really tuck everyone in and have Darwin kind of be this lone target guy up there. And they held on to win, and
they held on.
It doesn't mean not every like play that deserves credit, not every coaching decision that deserves credit has to be a sexy one because that wasn't, but it got the win. And man, like what a call!
And also, Darwin had a couple of chances to take on 3 dudes and almost beat 3 dudes single-handedly at the top of the field, which is why he was the one. Like, he was close on a couple of chances when a ball got hit long over the top, which that shouldn't be possible in that situation.
Yes.
But he's insane.
He is insane. Oh, my gosh. He's so good. But I would say, right, this is the 3rd time we've seen him play, and I felt like Vancouver, which if they don't know, then they're not doing their job scouting. But they
were ready
clearly
for him.
know Darwin's the best player, and every team going forward will know that. And it felt like Vancouver was the first team that whether it was Darwin having a poor game or Vancouver doing a good job defending is up for debate, but it felt like Vancouver wanted to snuff him out of the game, and they did relatively. And I think that's what's going to be interesting is how does Darwin and how does Heath and the team adapt when teams game plan to take away your best player. And that's what's going to be interesting because, well, what's crazy is Darwin's so good that even if teams do that, he will still find a way. He minimum, bet your mortgage on it, he'll create at least 3 chances for himself or others each game. But it will be interesting to see how teams, well, against Vancouver, he only created 3 chances. Against LA, he's able to create 7. Like, it'll be interesting to see how that fluctuates.
Kind of going back to what you said before, this reinforces the notion he's just that much better skill-wise than a lot of the players. You basically need to have 3 guys to compete, right? Is that kind of the lesson we learned here? 3 designated players? Like, it just seems like if you have 3 guys that are better than most players in the league.
If you want to try to finish in the top 2 of either conference, yes,
okay.
Minimum 3 full use of your DPs,
and who you choose.
But I think honestly, it's crazy to say at this point, but right now Minnesota's in the playoff spots.
That was my second question.
And they're 4th in the Western Conference, and they are unbelievably short-handed. 2 of their surefire starters are been out for a while now. Molino the entire season, Finley the last 2 games, and they've won the last 2 games. So, and then not to mention the 9 guys that are questionable on the injury report right now, including who you thought would have been your starting striker in Ramirez. And they're 4th in the West now. And I just think that says that, you can make, and we know the MLS has tons of parity. Mm-hmm. So you can make the playoffs without using all your DPs.
So
I think is what they're kind of proving. And other teams have proved.
To wrap up a thought on Quintero and on the end of the game, one of my favorite little moments of the game was in stoppage time. There were 6 minutes of stoppage time because of the water break. 94th minute of that, I was keeping track on my watch of how many minutes had elapsed. Quintero forces a corner on getting upfield, and Ibson and Quintero waste 90 seconds just getting the ball back and forth, being a huge pain, get a second corner out of it, get an out of bounds call. It's just the little things like that. That's winning soccer.
And
in those
are veteran guys, right?
Yeah.
Although Ibson, after that good spell, Ibson kind of messed it up a little bit.
Ibsened?
He Ibsened.
You don't say.
Yeah. Well, but that's the best part about using Ibsen as a verb is it could mean anything.
It could mean anything.
He Ibsen that. What do you mean? I don't know.
He scored a back heel from 12 yards.
Last week he Ibsened it, and that was scoring the game-winning goal.
And this week it's doing whatever he was doing. So that's finished the game 1-0, 10 versus 11, a huge. I'm
going to Ibsen this podcast.
The words the words that I saw used by my fellow recap writers across the things were things like gritty, scratchy,
itchy and scratchy.
Steve McPherson, the one of Minnesota United's web people who writes their game stories that go on the team site, used gritty in his headline right after I'd been I can't use gritty. Somebody else is going to do it. I felt it.
That was that. A Wolf Among Wolves connection.
Yeah, Steve McPherson, the legend of Timberwolves blogging.
Yeah,
who now is one of the feds. Essentially, he works for the team now. He's not one of us anymore. But so I want to start with the defense because the final score of this game was 1-0. That is a Minnesota United team registering a clean sheet. No goals allowed for the first time in 2018. And I didn't look back and see how long it's been since they've registered a clean sheet. Somebody had that stat because I don't feel like there were that many of those last year either.
Yeah, I mean, not a ton.
Not a ton. But
yeah, I can look it up.
There was a few.
Is Vancouver offensively potent, or is this a team that... Because they're high up in the standings, right? Vancouver.
Yeah. No, they can score. No, to David's point, it was one of the best. It was one of the best defensive performances by far, obviously, for United this season.
And in the MLS Team of the Week, which was announced today, which we get to talk about now, there were 2 Minnesota United players: Bobby Shuttleworth, whose praises we've already sang, and Francisco Calvo.
Honestly, I'm not surprised because when you say that, it just sounds like they read my player ratings, and if you look at them, those are the two guys I ranked the highest for United on the day. So that and Alexi Gomez. So they missed out. I don't know what they're thinking on that
I think you have to go
one.
back to DC United 719. September
July
20th.
of last year.
Yeah, July.
That's good. That's quite a bit. Wow.
Yeah, they won that game 4-0.
Yeah, and that DC United finished like dead last in MLS that year.
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain. So that speaks to that. No, Shuttleworth, as you point, we've discussed.
We've
a
talked
bit.
about Shuttleworth. I want to talk about Calvo because he had his best game of the year by far.
Yeah, he did. I saw you like this information on Twitter. Another United blogger, I forget his name, but he pointed out on Twitter that Francisco Calvo's head coach for Costa Rica was actually at this game, and lo and behold, it's Calvo's best game. What does that say? You know
It's
what I mean?
interesting.
It is interesting, and honestly, I actually kind of look at that as a negative sign. Personally, because it's like, dude, like you can't just be performing this well when your national team coaches are in Minnesota.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt of that on that one and see. I want to see what he looks like on Wednesday, or if he doesn't feature on Wednesday, on Saturday. Like,
Is the coach visiting as like a quote unquote fan, or is he like
He's there to assess.
Okay.
He's there to assess, and he's prepping for a World Cup campaign, unlike the rest of the United
so?
States.
It makes sense that you know what I mean.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No.
But that's not
important
good enough.
context, I
He
think.
should be performing
Yeah.
awesome all the time.
It's not like national team coaches don't have film. Like,
Right.
True,
I
exactly.
just think when they're in the building, you're going to talk to them afterwards and stuff, or it's a little different.
But this is what Calvo can be, and that's what's frustrating. And I think one of the things that actually, like, from a positive standpoint, that Heath said after the game was like he referenced like Calvo's good play on the day and being a huge part of their shutout, and he was like, you know, Calvo's been upset. He's been upset. He knows he's been making some mistakes and cost us points during this season. So that speaks to a guy that does care and that is trying to make things better, and we saw that on Saturday.
my
so.
thing with Calvo, if we think about how we've talked about him earlier this season on the pod, it's been a lot of negative stuff. It's been a lot of talking about the mistakes he's made and the things that have gone wrong. The thing that I liked the most about Calvo's game is I was looking through chalkboard stats, as I tend to do towards the end of games, just to see like trends and see what's going on.
This is a great stat.
I didn't count how many passes Calvo took, and I wish that was a number I could look at on MLSsoccer.com. He missed 3 passes in the entire game, and was
that's
accurate everywhere else,
And that's-
which is incredible for a central defender.
Yeah, it's really impressive for a couple of reasons. One, like your center backs like shouldn't be like very good passers and don't need to be in a lot of times. They're not expected that, but it speaks to his skill set, which we've highlighted at times that he's maybe better than that position and maybe could play elsewhere. But also the center backs are a lot of times. Sometimes they're going to have really easy passes, but sometimes some of the most difficult because everyone's bearing down on them and they have the entire defense in front of them the whole time, right? So, it's impressive. It's impressive from Calvo to have that passing percentage.
Yeah, it was. I think the first time that Calvo has noticeably been a step above Michael Boxall, because Boxy did not have one of his best games this week. Got beat a couple times by Alphonse Davies, who, to be fair, is large and fast and very, very good and Vancouver's best threat.
I disagree with that premise. I think on the day that's very accurate. I disagree with that premise because I just think Boxall's not that good in general.
That's fair.
Sorry, man. He's sitting right here next to me, and I just feel bad having
We
to
should
say
have
that.
let him at least,
Yeah, probably.
like talking to a mic.
Yeah. But I just feel like it's very clear that he's kind of like, especially between the two of them. But it's kind of clear to me he's like the weak link a lot of times on that defense because when Thiessen's on, when Calvo's playing like he did that night, and you're getting good stuff out of your left back, in this case Miller. It's just kind of clear that he's kind of the weak link.
One of my favorite press box moments and reactions was in probably about the 86th, 87th moment where Francisco Calvo gets a turnover and just starts trucking upfield. Watching Nick Hallett's face while Calvo makes his way across midfield and almost goes through 2 defenders on his own was a work of art in unfolding in real time, because he almost did it too. He was going, and if he'd hit a pass to Quintero, who was out in front, that was a goal scoring opportunity. Just because he's like, I can do this, whatever.
Yeah. No, that is a man after my own heart, because that's what I try to do on the field.
I adore that.
And yeah, exactly. And I don't root for Minnesota United, but I root for individuals just in general. And for a guy to be as ballsy as that in that moment, it's how do you not root for that? And so I would have stood up and applauded, if he'd have got through there. But
if he'd gone through and scored, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, and I mean it's the same if a Vancouver center back tried something crazy like that. It'd be freaking fair play to you, man.
Respect.
That's awesome.
Nothing but respect.
Yeah.
So we've talked about those two. I want to give a little bit to Wyatt Omsberg, who I thought was very composed in a very tense situation to come into for your first probably significant MLS minutes, to come into a changed formation, play as a part of a 3 center back system with guys that you've probably spent a lot of time in practice with, but you've never been in this situation with. And he was involved in the play. He had the ball at his feet several times in the closing minutes and was composed and on top of things, placed his passes right, didn't do anything that would have gotten him in trouble, didn't make the rookie mistake like a Mason Toye mistake did, right? I was small sample size because he was only on the pitch for 20 total minutes, including stoppage time. But I really liked what I saw just in terms of composure and awareness and placement on the field from him in a tense and unfamiliar situation.
I think you can give him some credit. I think it's tough. It's a really small sample size.
Yeah, it's a tiny sample size.
And he's surrounded by tons of help defenders because it was such a defensive formation, But
yeah. He was for a dude who had to get called back from Tulsa, where he played last week because of a day-to-day injury on Brent Coleman, who was not available to play in this game.
Yeah, and actually Bertrand Okawandi, he picked up a knock in train too.
So it's he had to get called back from Tulsa to play in this game after leaving on loan to assume I'm going to be here for the next 3 months, whatever. Pulled immediately back into the system, on the bench, into the game because of the situation. That's just, I'm impressed by that for a young player.
And more a good example of why it's good maybe to just loan him out though constantly, so that he maybe that situation felt more comfortable because he had just played, because you said
he played 90 minutes.
He played 90 minutes the last time he played when he was with Tulsa last week. So even more credit to why that's a good move by Heath to loan him out.
Yeah, definitely. Love that move from the front office and love that it paid off in this little tiny span.
Yeah.
We have not talked about the other move that the front office made this week at all, which that move featured in this game for 80 minutes.
Which was bizarre to me. I'm pretty still surprised. Did Heath mention that at all? Did that get talked about at all in the press conference?
Not really. We talked more about his fitness after the game, and I did talk to Miller himself briefly after the game, who was a little concerned about his fitness, but it was just one of those things it felt right.
I just think it's bizarre that I get it. Miller's an MLS veteran, so he is kind of plug and play. But literally Tyson plays on the left, so you could just keep him there. And Manley was a part of the 2-1 win last week.
Yep.
And to just this Miller's literally been with the team 2 days, and you're just gonna completely supplant Manley in that situation. I think that's a negative, because what does that potentially do to Manley's psyche and confidence? And it goes against an ethos that he's outlined for this team, that if you earn your starting place, you have it until you lose it. And Manley did nothing to lose his place.
I agree.
So I think that's a bad precedent by Heath.
And that said, to clarify, if you missed the news this week, Minnesota United acquired defender Eric Miller in a trade with Colorado Rapids. On the news came out after the MLS transfer window had actually closed, so it was interesting that I had assumed Minnesota United weren't doing anything, and then this starts to come out the next morning that this happened.
Yeah, I think it was Wednesday or something.
Yeah, it was the end of the day on May 1st, so the end of the day on Tuesday was the.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they traded for Miller from Colorado and gave up Sam Nicholson, who we've speaking of players who started in that 2-1 win last week.
Yeah. But he didn't. If we check back at the zone coverage player ratings, which I don't know who writes those, but that guy is a genius.
So
Yeah, it's really good.
Kind of sounds like he's drunk, but a genius. No, I'm just kidding. He sounds sober. But
Sounds sober. That's the key.
that's the key. That's how you fool them. You got to keep sounding sober. Anyway, he didn't play that well, and he hasn't been playing that well, and he's been kind of inconsistent. He had some good performances early in the season, but like going back to last year, he's never really consistently had a full-on impact from the wing.
We were kind of talking about him a couple episodes ago, right?
Yeah.
Where I'd asked if he was kind of underrated, and you said he's a little up and down.
And to be fair to him, like he is 23, one of the youngest guys on the team. He is still got plenty of room to develop, and does need that time. But you can kind of see like where like why he didn't demand to be kept, and as Heath outlined, and I wrote about this for the website when we talked to Heath during the week at practice. When you look at the defense, like he had to make this move because obviously tons of minor injuries, right? Coleman, as we talked about earlier, Bertrand, but also the issue with Tyrone Mears really struggling to stay healthy, and he's 35, so you kind of could just see looking ahead that's probably going to be an issue a lot of times. Manley's a rookie, and Mark Birch this week had a major knee surgery and is likely out for the year. So suddenly they're incredibly shorthanded defensively, and frankly, Mark Birch has that surgery or not, he shouldn't even be on the team or shouldn't be featuring. So he needed to replace as is, something I had said weeks ago. So clearly Heath saw that, felt the need to make this move, and it's a fantastic move in that sense because it is needed, and the dude's from Woodbury, and he's one of the best soccer products to ever come out of Minnesota. So to have him here on the team, I mean, again, marketing boon for the Loons.
So just to clarify, you like the trade?
I do.
So
I do, and it got further. Like I liked it, right? Let's say I liked it like probably 7 out of 10. Initial read, maybe even 8 out of 10. But then Alexi Gomez's performance in his place, right, his first start as a Loon, stunningly fantastic performance, showed he can dribble around defenders, which Nicholson has struggled to do consistently, and then creates with a phenomenal, one of the best assists we've seen this whole season, says that put you out of 10 out of 10. How can you not be kind of like pretty much sold on that trade?
So I wrote a story about the deal when it went down on Wednesday when the stuff came out about it. And I was less sold on it at that point, mainly because I knew that Miller played a ton in Colorado the last 2 years. In 2016, Colorado had one of the best defenses in Major League Soccer, went to the MLS Cup, I believe, that season. Or at least got close.
Western Conference Finals.
I think Seattle got past them.
Yeah.
But they were a really good team, and he was a core part of that team. Started 90% of their games that season. Hadn't played it all this season. And I was told and enlightened by people who follow the rest of the MLS more closely than I do that Colorado's gone through a bit of a formation change, and he was going through some little bits of health stuff, which he confirmed himself after the game on Saturday, which is why he had not played a single MLS minute before Saturday's game this season. Which that concerned me a little bit, just because whenever like I'm writing up a story about a guy that gets acquired and I can't figure out through some Googling why he hasn't played yet this season, it concerns me a little bit. But like, he's obviously fit. He played 80 minutes, went off because he cramped up in the 80th minute. It was a hot day fair, whatever. Like, and he hadn't played a minute yet this year. No problems with that. I think Nick made a comment to me in the press box, I think right after he came off, that it was like Eric Miller himself in Saturday's game did what he needed to do because we barely said his name at all. He was there. Nothing went wrong. That was about it.
It was really funny, though, because there was, like, clear, I think it was two times, it was, like, super clear, like a Minnesota United player he was going to pass to, like, ran one direction, and he passed it the other direction. It was like, oh, it's almost like that guy's only been on the team for 2 days. Oh, wait, he has. Just a couple simple plays where it's just, like, clearly the chemistry's not there yet, but that's to be.
And clearly, like, when I did the research on Miller and like you got the Woodbury connection, you've got the fact that he went to Creighton, and my favorite nugget that I found when I was writing the story up is that in the national NCAA semifinals in 2011, which Creighton was in, Ethan Finlay and Eric Miller and Brett Coleman all played in that game, in the same game.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's super. Yeah.
Because they all went to Creighton, and that was where all three of their careers crossed over.
Yeah, and it's so crazy that Coleman and Miller have played club soccer together, college soccer together, and now pro soccer together. And actually, Miller, I don't know if you know this.
I've heard this
Oh,
one.
yeah. Miller's married to Coleman's sister. Like, you can't get any closer than
Yeah,
that.
like
Jeez.
so Miller is the most quintessential coming home to Minnesota player you can possibly find.
Seriously.
So it kind of worked
It'd
out.
be like if LeBron, who was on the Cavs when LeBron came back to the Cavs the first time, like when he went to Miami and then he came back.
Yeah.
Who was some of the guys on that team?
Oh my God! Well, I mean, K Love. No, that was a trade
That was
later.
a trade.
Come on, you guys are basketball guys.
Kyrie was there.
It'd be like if LeBron was married to Kyrie's sister when he came back, and then that's what was going on. And
So-
Kyrie was like, and if he'd played and if LeBron, it's like if LeBron had played high school basketball with Kyrie, played Duke. They played at Duke together.
Yeah.
And then LeBron married Kyrie's sister and then came back.
So-
that's what that'd
so
be
this
like.
worked
and
out-
if Kyrie was from Cleveland,
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah, you need to include that part because that's important.
Uncle Drew. No, I
That was
mean
a terrible
Eric
analogy,
Miller's
but I'll allow it.
Eric
What
Miller's
now?
LeBron. Basically what I'm saying, Eric Miller's LeBron James.
That is one of the worst analogies I've ever heard, but I'll allow it.
Wait, it's one of us. But no, I mean, it's kind of funny you brought this up. That it's not just he's a positional fit. It also seems to be a move you make if you're going to make a push to compete this year, right? Otherwise, you would keep a younger player as opposed to.
I mean, but Miller's still only
Miller's
25.
like 25.
Oh,
yeah.
oh, okay.
He's only
So
2 years older.
That's what's even better about this trade is this trade makes sense of actually makes a good amount of sense if Miller's like 29.
Yeah.
But he's 25. Like I think it's a fantastic trade. Not to mention Miller can potentially play he could play at right back or center back. He's super versatile. This trade's fantastic, honestly. The only reason this trade could ever be negative is if Miller suffered a really bad injury or something. Otherwise,
Which is always a caveat.
oh, sure. But and that's still But I think they really hit it out of the park in a lot of ways on this trade.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by it. I'm way more sold on it now than I was on Wednesday when I wrote the piece taking down the trade.
Yeah.
And I have to ask this as a newer Minnesota United follower and writer. Does Minnesota United have enough former players in the league yet that former players show out against them every time they play them? I need to know. Is Sam Nicholson
I mean,
going to score?
you know how this happens to the Wolves all the time, like Ty Lawson or whatever, or just random
Wayne
ex-Wolves.
Ellington?
Wayne Ellington,
Beasley.
yes,
Anyone who's ever played for the Timberwolves
Yeah.
always score. Derek Williams.
yeah. Freaking
Anyone
Derek
who's ever
Williams.
played for the Timberwolves will guaranteed score at least 20 points.
Wow,
against them next time they
that
see
was
them.
just
all the bad ones too.
You didn't even build into that T-Wolves crossover. That was just an unabashed T-Wolves comparison.
Yeah.
I need to know because I need to know if I should bet on Sam Nicholson to score a brace whenever Minnesota plays
I
Colorado.
think that's sports wide though. I think
It is,
That's
but,
pretty obviously you feel it the strongest because it's the Wolves, but I think that's pretty sports wide. That it's if you've been on this, if you feel any bit slighted by a team, there's a chance you go off against them.
yeah, it's just one of those things where it's
Yeah. To answer your question though, no, not really.
okay. I was gonna say they've had that many people leave at least during the MLS years, so it's no track record of it yet.
No.
But maybe Sam Nicholson will be the
Nicholson would be
first one
kind of
to
one
bite
to
him.
watch though.
Yeah, that's one that could bite them coming forward because he's 23. He's an attacking player that's got a lot of potential to develop, and it's one of those for Colorado, that's got to be a pretty good piece to get in a trade.
That would
If you're-
be that would-
especially since Miller's not playing for them right now, and they're still doing however well they're doing. That's got to be a pretty good trade to make to get a good young piece for a piece that you're not using.
Yeah, no, that would be, I guess, the one spot where you really you're going to regret this trade if you're United is if Nicholson becomes a stalwart on the left side of Colorado's attack and he's bagging in a goal every other game or something, and then it's a bummer because Miller's upside is actually Sam Nicholson's upside is much higher than
Much
Miller's. But I don't know that Nicholson has not shown enough that I really feel confident he'll reach.
Well, and that's
that upside,
also
so.
how hard is it to judge overall upside for a defender versus an attacker in soccer? Because I feel like that's a hard
It is
comparison to make.
But that's the thing. Defenders have limited upside. that's what
Because
I'm saying.
they don't need that much upside to do their jobs perfectly competently.
Yes.
Like that's an interesting one.
Like, I don't know the exact thing off the top, the exact like list off the top of my head, but I would venture to say there's like maybe one outside defender who's a designated player in the MLS.
Yeah.
Right? Same in like if you go like bigger scale like the Premier League. I find it hard to believe there's any outside backs that are the highest paid players on their team. Doesn't mean they're not stunningly good. Doesn't mean they're not fantastic at their jobs. But outside back is just not a high profile position.
Yeah, like
Even though you need it.
the one that comes to mind is like Kyle Walker is not the highest paid player on Manchester City's roster.
No chance.
He's very good. He's one of the best ones at his position in the Premier League.
Right.
But like he doesn't need to be
Most
messy.
expensive to purchase ever outside back.
Yeah, I believe so.
So, but he's still not going to be the highest paid player on his team by
Not even
a
close.
long shot.
Not even close.
So
that's like I like the trade a lot, and I liked Miller's minutes. I'm interested to see like you assume he's the permanent starter now. Like I feel pretty
I
confident about
guess
that.
if you're going to bench Manley immediately, he's going to start a lot. What's interesting about him is he doesn't have like a very clear preferred position. So is he going to start? Likely, yes, but like where always? Like I was surprised
because he's played some center back too, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. So
if you're worried about if you have questions about Boxall, do you think like maybe try
That's my hope.
Calvo
actually.
Miller?
That's my hope. Is that Miller replaces him? But the one problem from a center back perspective of Miller is not super large.
No.
He's only 6 foot, and that's kind of an issue. But I think in a lot of other ways he would be better than Boxall.
Yeah. and
But
it's one of those,
Boxall
like-
is, if anything, if but nothing else, Michael Boxall is a large individual.
And it's like Vancouver, and it like interestingly, in a game where this would have been highlighted the most is against Vancouver, who are a lot of really big dudes up front. They are just like Heath said they were probably the largest team in MLS. Was one of the first comments he made in his comments after the game, because they're just like they're big dudes. Like Alphonse Davies is huge. And that's where that becomes a problem, is if you have an opposing team who has 3 attackers who are like 6'2", 6'3", and your center backs are just smaller than them, they're just going to send in crosses, and you're going to lose, and they're going to try and get headers, and Bobby Shuttleworth's going to have to be God.
Yeah.
Like that's where that's a problem. Other teams might not punish that as much if you don't have that like big figurehead striker at the top who's going to win every header in the box, who's going to cause all these problems. You can get away with it, but you do need that size in some matchups, and the Vancouver one's a really good example of that. So we've talked about the back line. You touched on Alexi Gomez. Alexi Gomez was awesome. The point that I want to line up with Gomez is you thought, and I agreed, that Vancouver prepared extremely well for Darwin Quintero and had plans for how to deal with him, how to take him out of the game. They did not have a plan for Alexi Gomez because
he's never played in the MLS.
Game in the MLS, and he played 12 minutes last time. And it turns out Alexi Gomez just likes to dunk on people trying to defend him.
Well, we'll give him
Or
dunking.
try.
We'll give him dunking status.
He likes to try.
We'll give him dunking status when he can prove it consistently. But yeah, no, early signs are very
it's
positive.
the thing with him and his game is he's always going forward. He is always attacking. His was the other chalkboard that I thought was very interesting to look at, because he wasn't the most accurate on his passes, but he has just this slew of passes into the box. Like every single thing in his mindset was forward, attacking, try to beat a guy, try to get across and try to do.
And that's
do
what
this
you're
and that.
supposed
And
to do
that's
as a
awesome.
winger. That's what you're supposed to do. So, like, on one hand, like, you can't, like, he's not reinventing the wheel. But on the other hand, like, kudos, you're freaking doing what you're supposed to be doing. And other guys either don't have the ability, or actually, it's just a lot of times they just don't have the ability to, like, manifest all those things. And he does, and that's great.
And you looked at, like, I talked a little bit about how the play styles kind of mirrored each other, because Minnesota's kind of turning themselves into a counterattacking team. Quintero and Gomez in the open field is a problem.
Same with, and you could, but like, even though Miguel hasn't shown like as much technical ability as them, one of the skills that we're starting to see and really know about him is his stamina is top notch. So you add in a guy who's going to be able to run whenever needed, even if he's not top speed guy, that's super valuable.
Well,
and that's why he scored the goal he scored. He busted all the way up the field.
You
for
have
that.
the two creative guys, and you have Miguel, who's going to work his butt off and who's going to finish his chances.
It's a nice
It's
trio.
a great recipe.
Yeah, it's a
and
nice
that's
trio.
like Quintero and Gomez are fast. They're technically gifted, and they're already showing chemistry together. And that's the kind of thing, like, you have an attack that can do that, and if you get one of your three strikers fit to go with that,
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Is like that's what you need to figure out. Who the frick is the striker? Is it Dunlady and all his speed? Can he stay healthy even if it was him? Probably not. He hasn't shown that at all. And then Mason's the rawest of the three and shows it by doing the most boneheaded thing anyone's done all season and getting a straight red. And then Ramirez, who doesn't have those wheels but should fit well with that type of system, but has been off form and injured. It's a mess right now.
yeah, the striker position is a big mess. There's a decent chance that they don't have a striker healthy for Wednesday's game in LA.
Exactly.
Because Mason is suspended because red card rules.
And Abu and Christian are questionable.
And Abu and Christian are questionable. I know Christian traveled with the team.
Yeah, everyone tweeted about that like that was some big deal. Like, okay, what else is he gonna do? Like,
I can report that Christian Ramirez was at the game on Sunday in street clothes, because of course he was.
yeah, I don't. Just because he flew with the team doesn't mean he's healthy. Everyone alluded to that.
It's everybody's running with that quote that he said about he's taking everybody that's healthy,
yeah, that's silly. Like,
which he did say. That was his quote.
no, he did literally say that, but like, literally, why wouldn't Christian is questionable? So yeah, he might be somewhat healthy. Doesn't mean he's on the plane, he's fully fit. Like what? I was kind of outraged.
So
by that.
the question then that leads directly into looking forward at the LA game, the first midweek game of this, and the second of now a 3-game in 8-day stretch, which in any soccer league is a rough stretch for a team that has currently having squad depth issues.
For sure. Even worse. Twice as worse.
Should Minnesota effectively tank this game?
I wouldn't be shocked if it was on Heath's mind, especially because LA looks like they're sick. But if you do that and you lose 7-0, that goal differential will haunt you.
Yep.
So
Not only that, that's a morale killer, isn't it?
yeah, exactly.
After, like,
from a
the sweet
fan
win
base
or whatever?
perspective, from a team, even if you
Yeah, the
know,
players have
even
to-
if
yeah.
you told everyone on the team, like, guys, it's fine, we're gonna tank. Like, it would be on your mind just knowing you lost and everyone knows you lost 7-0. So, no, I don't think they will.
Because it's one of those
I
things.
wouldn't blame them for considering it, but I don't think they will.
You just have to look at matchups. LA, currently second in the West, great form, banging in goals, brand new stadium, rabid fan base, in their place. Minnesota on Saturday has San Jose, who are bottom of the West, they probably shouldn't have lost to the first time they played them, who they should be better than at home.
But I think right there's maybe the argument why you like, all right, guys, I know it's going to be tough, but we go full bore at LA, and then we get a nice bounce back, not only against a bad team, but at home. So you can catch your rest in that sense.
And you can see it going either way. But it's one of those things where, like, when you have players like you have Christian Ramirez, who's rehabbing an injury right now, do you risk playing him in this LA game? I probably wouldn't if I was in Adrian Heath's shoes.
My concern, that's a good question. My concern is like that this run of games is going to cause more injuries.
Yeah.
Like Darwin's going to get injured, or Gomez or Ibarra are going to get injured. That's what's going to be a problem.
Yeah, because it's now the signing deadline is done for a while, so you can't.
Yeah, the transfer window's closed.
You cannot add much more than they have to this squad.
Other than free agents.
So they've got to conserve
Yeah.
in some places, and it's
I bet Heath's tearing his hair out right now because this is unfortunate timing.
It's unfortunate timing, and it's just this is how the schedule works. You're flying to L.A. next day, 2 days after your last game. You'll be there. You'll fly back on Thursday, and you play a 1:00 kick on Saturday. Like that is this week, and it's gonna be what it is.
This is the equivalent of short rest.
Yeah,
right?
very short rest.
Pitcher or like a football team.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough.
No, it's like it's the NFL equivalent would be going Sunday to Thursday,
Yeah.
and then also playing on Monday night that same week as the Thursday game.
Yeah.
Probably not great.
Yeah.
Probably not great. That's why they don't do it. Like, it's
Yeah.
one of those-
Why do you have a Wednesday?
It's
game?
really rare. It's like one of the only times they'll have that.
Is it for exposure, or is there some other reason?
It might be. It might be like to get a national broadcast.
It might be to get LA's home game schedules in because their stadium opened a week
Yeah,
ago.
that's right.
Yep, that's another factor.
So you can showcase a United team, new United team in the playoffs, right? In the playoff hunt, and then you can showcase the LA
I think it's
Stadium.
more just LA's team.
Yeah.
My
I think
question
United's
is
just catching a little extra.
My question with the Wednesday game is not with the Wednesday game at all. It's with the Saturday game. I think that if they play a Wednesday game, they should be playing on Sunday.
For sure.
Yeah, that makes
I think
a lot
that
of
too.
sense.
I think that too. And again, that's where he's got to be frustrated.
Because that would be my question with this: is they're playing a Sunday game, not this weekend, but next weekend. They play on the 20th.
So it may be something that he makes a call, maybe not even before the game, but just as the game unfolds. Like if it's 3-0 at halftime, he might be like,
I guarantee if they lose both these next games, especially the second press conference after the San Jose game, if they lose both, he'll mention the schedule and be like mention that it was very unfortunate, but he also might even be upset and actually kind of coaches in other leagues yell at the leagues about these types of things.
Yeah.
It's one of those things like the Red Bulls game, which we talked about a while ago. That had reasons for them starting a completely different backline in that game, and they got whooped 3-0, and it was not pleasant. I don't necessarily think we'll see a completely different backline or a completely different defensive midfield, but it might not have all the usual pieces in it because you have to rotate in situations like this.
That'll be what's really interesting is who rotates.
Who rotates?
That'll be
what
really
do you do?
interesting.
Like, is it one of those situations where you start some of your younger players in midfield and hold back one of Quintero or Gomez to maybe come on as a sub if you're in the game and maybe you can chase at 70th, 75th?
No, it's a great example.
Yeah. Because that's like you see this in European leagues a lot. You see it in the middle of the MLS season. This is why you have to have 2 or 3 players at every position, because in situations like this, you've got to rotate your guys. You just have to. It's part of the game.
For sure.
And it's hard because you look at the easiest example of this right now is Toronto, who are very low in the East because they were dealing with midweek games basically every week during the start of the MLS season.
Man.
And we're playing all backups in the MLS, and we're getting smacked around.
One of the best rosters in the league, and if they can't rotate and maintain a decent standard, what does that?
And they
say for
got
everyone else?
they got to the Champions League final and lost, but they could not keep their league form up at all. And right now they are out of the playoff places and not particularly close in the East, which that team had the best MLS season in history last year. They should not be out of the playoff places. They didn't lose players like that. But this is part of the game. And so how Heath deals with this on Wednesday is going to be really interesting to see, because the first such situation of this, and it comes at a really bad time injury-wise for this team. So it's a late kick on Wednesday, 9:30 kickoff, I think.
Yep.
So we're going to be up late. 9 or 9:30, I forget which one.
I don't know.
It's not pleasant for those of us in the Central Time Zone, we'll put it that way.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. That's slightly better. I might be in bed by midnight.
We'll see.
We'll
The
see.
one thing about soccer, especially because I'm covering baseball right now,
Guaranteed 2 hours, and we're done.
Yes.
True that.
Almost impossible for it to go significantly more than 2 hours. I was talking about that with somebody who wanted to go to a game. It's like, I can promise you'll be on your way out of the stadium by 3:10
Yeah.
for a 1 o'clock kick.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah. And after last night's Cardinals-Cubs game that went until well after I went to sleep because of some dumb stuff.
Yeah.
No baseball. Tired of that. So, with that said, we will next come to you after not 1 but 2 games, given the schedule of this
That'll
week,
be exciting.
with the Wednesday appearance at the Bank of California or Bank of something stadium. I know it's Bank with a C, and I think that's dumb. That's my official position.
All right.
Yeah.
Naylor's going to rob it.
Someone already robbed it. Somebody already robbed it of its K.
No, I'm going to reverse rob it and put like the vertical part next to the C, so it looks like a K. I'm giving it to you, Bank.
Good job.
You need your vertical part back so you can have a K in your name. Yeah. Anyway, so they'll play at that brand new stadium, which looks real nice and should make you think happy thoughts of Minnesota United's new stadium next year. And then they play another matinee game on Saturday against the San Jose Earthquakes, who beat them earlier this season, and they should probably be a little bit hungry for revenge against a team that is not very good and is probably worse than they are. So, with that said, we don't have time to talk about Europe or anything this week because we have gone long talking about a very exciting game this week. So, for Nick Hallett at Prince Hallett, Tom Schreier at T-Schreier3, I am David Naylor at Prof. 2. This has been the Minnesota Soccer Podcast, and we will see you next week.
Peace.